Welcome friends, and welcome back to Katie's Camp Kitchen. Today we're going to make some bread in our bread maker using a portable power station. We're going to measure how much power in watts and how much energy in watt hours the bread takes to bake. When I was making this video, I had planned to use only my new EcoFlow River 2 Pro. I expected that it would be able to make the bread just like I do when I'm hooked up to the electric grid, and that turned out to be the case. After looking at the results of that experiment, it occurred to me that the Bluetti EB3A might do pretty well. While it didn't have enough energy to complete the whole cycle, spoiler alert, it still worked. So I'll walk you through those results as well. I'm using a 1 pound loaf bread maker, a Zojurishi. Any 1 pound bread maker would work, or you could modify this recipe to make it in a 1.5 or 2 pound loaf. The original recipe for this bread came from the King Arthur Flour website. I have modified their recipe to work for me, so here we go. The first thing I did was to heat up the water and milk. Wanted to have lukewarm water, so somewhere between 100 and 105 degrees is good. Here goes the combination of water and milk. I'll have the recipe in the description box of the video. So that was 1/4 cup or 57 grams of lukewarm milk and 2/3 cup or 152 grams of lukewarm water. Next I'm going to add 2 tablespoons or 25 grams of extra virgin olive oil, or you can use 2 tablespoons of butter. Next I'm going to add in 2.5 cups or 283 grams of all-purpose flour, or a combination of all-purpose and bread flour. Next I'm going to add 1 tablespoon plus 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1.25 teaspoons of salt. I mix that a little bit, and then right in the middle I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of instant yeast. Now I'm going to add the loaf pan into the bread maker. On this particular bread maker I'm using the white bread program, which is program number 1 here, and I'm going to set it for a dark crust. This bread will take about 3 hours and 35 minutes to actually complete. I'm going to turn on the AC power now on my brand new delivered today EcoFlow River 2 Pro, an 800 watt inverter and an 800 watt hour energy level. I'm going to go ahead and set up the bread machine now. So on this it's course 1, crust control is dark, and then I'm just going to hit the button. Now we're in the bake cycle of the bread machine, and we're using 450 watts. And so far we've used 100 watt hours of energy. During the bake cycle, we will use the most energy of the whole cycle of baking. And the bread has finished baking. The total amount of energy used was 260 watt hours. The maximum amount of power used was a little bit less than 500 watts, so you would definitely want a 500 watt inverter. I'm going to go ahead and pull the bread out of the bread machine now. A little bit left in the bottom, but that happens sometimes. And this is where the paddle was. It'll make 8 to 10 slices of bread. Hope you'll make this if you have a bread maker. Maybe you've got a bread maker in a closet that hasn't seen the light of day in a long time. They're well worth the effort to learn how to use them. And here's the finished bread. It came out great. Very nice crust on the outside and crumb on the inside, just like a homemade baked white bread should do.
Now let's make bread using the Bluetti EB3A.
The Bluetti EB3A ran out of energy 8 minutes before the bread was done. So I set a timer, and when that timer went off, I opened up the bread machine to reveal the bread, and I went ahead and took the temperature of it. Yeast bread like this is done at between 200 and 210 degrees, and it is exactly at 210 degrees. So this bread is done regardless of the fact that we ran out of power. I'm just gonna bring it out so you can see it. And there's the completed bread. It looks great. Let's just check the temperature once more. 109 degrees now that I've had it out for a minute or so. I could have left this in the machine and the crust would have developed a little bit more because there is retained heat inside the bread maker. Let's see if I can get this out. Oh, there we go. That looks awesome.
This chart shows the results of the bread experiment. The first portion, titled Dark Crust Regular Cycle, is what I typically cook when I'm on grid at home. It takes 260 watt hours and 3 hours and 45 minutes to cook. And that was cooked with the EcoFlow River 2 Pro. After seeing these results and thinking about it, it occurred to me that the Bluetti EB3A might be able to cook the bread most of the way, and I wanted to see how far it would get. To my surprise, it cooked the bread completely. I did end up switching to the quick cycle for the bread versus the regular cycle, which cut the time from 3 hours and 45 minutes to 2 hours and 20 minutes. And that meant that there was only one rise and knead cycle versus two, and that I had a medium colored crust versus a dark crust. Sometimes those results are just fine, and that is the case here as well. To summarize, both power stations cooked the bread completely. The EcoFlow River 2 Pro operated the bread cycle that I normally use, like if I had been using from my traditional wall outlet. The Bluetti EB3A has a smaller battery. It ran out 8 minutes before it was completed. However, as long as you don't take the bread out of the machine, it will keep cooking due to the retained heat that is in the bread maker. I set a timer for 8 minutes. I took the bread out and checked the temperature. It was at 210 degrees, which is a fully cooked loaf of bread. Yeast breads like this complete their cooking when their temperature reaches between 200 and 210 degrees Fahrenheit. So this bread was perfectly done, and it tasted great too.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you very soon.